moderating. So now we have our next panel coming up, which is on RFQs and AMMs and enhancing liquidity with these tools. We'll have a great moderator called Danning. She's the research director at Pantera. We have Nikita, who is the CEO at Barter, one of the largest on-chain solvers. We have Ken, the co-founder of Uniswap Foundation. And we have Nicolas, who is a senior engineer at 0x. Okay, please give a big round of applause for our next panel.
Hello, hello. Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear us? Cool? Cool. All right. Thanks for coming to the liquidity panel at DeFi Today. I'm very happy to be here with our guest panelist to talk about basically the landscape of today's liquidity on-chain. We've seen the on-chain liquidity come a long way. Started from the DeFi summer, from order book, now then AMM, and then there we have RFQ coming in, and many, many new innovations. So maybe just to start first, I would like every panelist speaker to introduce themselves and also tell us about how does your project is serving the landscape or ecosystem of the on-chain liquidity. Maybe start with Ken, please.
Hi, I'm Ken. I lead applied research at the Uniswap Foundation. Uniswap is a decentralized exchange where anyone can provide liquidity and anyone is able to swap on other users' liquidity. That's how we provide liquidity to the ecosystem.
Hi everyone, my name is Nikita. I've been in DeFi for over 5 years. And we've built Barter. Barter is started as a solver on intent-based DEXs like Uniswap. And for those of you who don't know, solver is like a mix between market maker, aggregator, and MEV bot. But we sort of have a honorable goal in mind that we're trying to save users money. Every time people transact on Uniswap, Uniswap X, 1inch Fusion, and other venues, we try to give them the best rate and save them a few and gives them a few extra coins. And we are constantly improving liquidity landscape and gonna launch a new product called Superposition soon. But yeah, that's small TLDR on me.
So hi there, my name is Nicolas. I work in 0x. 0x and Matcha have been one of the OG companies in the ecosystem. Yeah, we know each other.
Worked as your Excel.
And we worked as a permissionless protocol for swaps and the aggregation of decentralized exchanges together with private market makers as other sources of liquidity. I work in the solver and pricing and RFQ team, and yeah, super nice being here.
Cool. Okay, so I want to also give an overview for people who are not familiar with all the project's updates. So what were the biggest announcement or updates you guys have seen in the space or, coming from your projects in the past, like half year, a year or so? This is basically a question alluding to a cue to Ken to talk about hooks. And okay, I'll let you start.
Yeah, so what did we do? So earlier this year, we announced Unichain, which is a generalized L2 built on the OP stack. With that, we have flash blocks, so like 200 millisecond block times, which is pretty cool for interop. And there's so much more that Unichain is going to bring into the future as a liquidity hub. We also released Uniswap v4 earlier this year, which is the new version of Uniswap, where we have the singleton contract. So it's hyper efficient, and it introduces this idea of hooks, which is arbitrary logic that can sit on top of liquidity. So it affects the way that anyone it affects literally kind of all parts of what it means to provide liquidity. It can be something that affects swaps, like before and after swap. It can affect liquidity provisioning before and after providing liquidity while you modify liquidity. An example of that is Euler swap, right? So Euler has these Euler vaults, and they built a hook called Euler swap where you're able to extend the liquidity that exists in the pool by borrowing from a Euler swap. And so it'll take out a loan at the time of a swap in order to facilitate like a much larger swap, more than what liquidity sits within that pool. And yeah, it's pretty awesome because it allows you to create new capabilities for liquidity that haven't been there before. Whether it's like MEV capture, MEV redistribution to LPs, liver mitigation, something that a lot of people are talking about, loss versus rebalancing. And hopefully that helps LPs become more profitable. It helps equilibrate the execution price across all DEXs.
I actually want to praise our friends from Uniswap for the work they do, and I agree, like hooks were an amazing addition to the DeFi landscape. If you look at the volume and metrics that were going through all those intent systems in 2024, market makers were starting to get really dominant, like I don't want to throw names, we all know them, like guys like Wintermute and others. They were gaining more and more market share, and of course there are like obvious reasons to it. They can price better, they have access to unique liquidity. But now, like the landscape is different, and hooks and other new DEXs like eKubo, Fluid, and many others, they sort of provide a viable alternative and a good competition. And hooks like Euler swap, make our lives of solvers a lot easier, a lot more efficient, and we can combine it to beat those big sharky market makers. So I'm definitely excited. Another point that I might add, it's on the grim side a little bit, that recent hacks in DeFi, especially like the balancer case, make the situation a little bit worse. We talked with a lot of teams who were initially like excited about hooks and new liquidity primitives, and now everyone is slightly scared of deploying, and even like hundreds of thousands of dollars of security audits do not guarantee that you are not going to get exploited. But yeah, I think those two are some of the biggest drivers and updates in terms of volume, activity, and overall things that are happening in the DeFi trading market.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. Actually, I think we all like complement each other in a good way because, for example, people being scared about his hooks or AMMs with this programmability, there's somebody that needs to work with them and integrate them in a way that are curated, right? And that's when solvers and aggregators like we do integrate both the AMM pools and also the professional market makers, not to sort of like beat them, but actually to complement with them, maybe for getting better liquidity. And we also participate in a protocol like Barter as one of the solvers. So yeah.
Thank you.
So what I'm hearing is that everybody is, working with each other, but yet competing some way. I actually wanted to ask a bit more just on the V4 hook innovation aspect, right? Like as a data person, what I saw is like the design thinking is to unlock and like freedom for a lot of like new design, but the standardization of the data decoding was kind of like a nightmare. But now it has been way better thanks to Jackie from Uniswap Foundation, many helps there. I'm curious also how you guys are integrating all these new liquidity. Has there been like some frictions or in general, is like, are these new liquidity serving a particular type of needs in terms of the pricing? Are they better at a certain type of asset class, etc.? How would you classify all these new liquidity?
I guess I'll start because these guys have done the lion's share work. This is really funny because you're right. The hook data standards have been so like fucked. And we spent a lot of time really kind of standardizing custom liquidity, custom curves, custom accounting, because it doesn't follow the XYK curve anymore, right? Anyone can create a hook that actually says, I'm going to build a new curve. And Barter and 0x have both been amazing partners in actually being like, okay, yeah, we'll do it. We'll figure it out. And through this, trial and error, literally banging our heads against the wall, like making things like not work. These guys have helped us create data standards. We've gotten a lot of feedback and actually making sure that it's as easy as possible. And also, like, it makes like building hooks easier. OpenZeppelin has this hooks library, and based on the feedback that you guys have given us, or your teams have given us, we've been able to be a lot more stringent on how these custom accounting hooks are built, how hook data can be standardized. But for liquidity and pricing, it's really tough. I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts on how you price these things, because there's like the quoting side of it, in which, like, it could be dynamic fee pricing, and that's something that we don't really see around other AMMs. So you have to play with dynamic fees, in times of high volatility, it shoots up. And then you also have like things that are like angstrom, for example, which Barter has been, one of the first solvers to actually pick that up. So insanely hard. Do they have external indexing? Like all all of the orders go off chain, and you guys index it all, and you're able to reprioritize. And how do you guys think about quoting? I'm shocked.
I'll be very quick with my response. Integrating hooks is tough. It requires a lot of research, a lot of tinkering. We have like a dedicated 6-person team who is just focused on this particular problem. But if you want efficiency, if you want to make money, if you want to be successful, you have to put in the work and combine all those innovations. The way we see it is like we've built our solver router as a sports car, and then we're winning this Formula 1 race of DeFi. And what does that mean is that we want to give users the best price. Every time when we are like quoting on CowSwap, 1inch Fusion, and other venues, we try to give the users the best price. And those extra hooks and extra liquidity add something to our engine that makes it more performant and sometimes give us this small edge. That's exactly what we need to succeed.
Yeah, similarly, we work with the routing of different sources of liquidity, and especially in super fast chains where like Solana, for example, that we have been working for the integration. This is like every millisecond counts, and it's actually very hard, and it's actually one of our main goals to reach the best execution quality in terms of latency and in terms of best price.
So following up on this question, but zoom out a little bit, let's talk about also RFQ liquidity, as the name indicates. I want to ask maybe a little bit of alpha on the stage, as in like, how do you guys see all these liquidity sources compare as of today? How does where does RFQ stands out? Where does AMM compete over in terms of like a competitive landscape for liquidity? I want to have your take on what's the best way to route all these liquidity for best pricing?
I can take that. So we think about the liquidity landscape in a non-homogeneous way, right? So you have like the blue chip that are very competitive. It's actually commoditized like the swap. And then you have the long tail assets where liquidity is not so good. I think that sources of liquidity like Uniswap, for example, and liquidity pools like AMMs are like always on. They're always going to be available. Sometimes they can offer a better experience for the user, but at the same time, then you have like depth and liquidity that professional market makers can bring, like RFQ, that add up on top of this layer. It's like one layer on top of the other, and it's kind of like a fabric that it's the execution layer for the user to be seen as seamless, right? And all this complexity is abstracted for the user. So I don't see one beating the other, but actually in the future, all this converging. Also, I heard you say about the before swap and these hooks. Sometimes the off-chain prices and the off-chain participants can bring signals to the on-chain market that could make the prices to be more liquid and the spreads to be tighter. So it's kind of like a collaboration.
Let me jump here with our newest product called Superposition. And we were inspired by RFQ guys. And what we observed on the market with like intent access, cow swap, solvers, that market making liquidity is becoming more and more dominant. And what do market makers do? They route to the hot wallet. And we, as an on-chain primitive, we always felt like we are fighting for the little guy, improving life of the end users, and we don't want to become or lose to like those big sharky market makers. And we thought, why don't we do the same? We can also start routing to user wallets and unite user wallets as a new liquidity layer, distributed liquidity layer. And it allows like new things to be built. For example, self-custodial yield. I've just came up with this analogy today while explaining the concept of superposition, but imagine like you have different stables, or if you're like a normal person, imagine you have like, I don't know, euros, dollars, British pounds in your wallet, and you don't care, like imagine you have 1,000 pounds, and you know approximate number of dollars, how much that would net you, but you're asset agnostic. You don't care which money you hold. You just want them to generate yield, increase in numbers. And you can allow us to tap into your liquidity under condition that we will give you more than what you currently have. And we will start routing. And maybe at one point in time, you will have a Japanese yen in your wallet, which you don't use or not going to be spending soon. But you start earning yield. It's self-custodial, it's growing, and no one has done it before in DeFi. Combining RFQ like pricing mechanism with on-chain settlement is really, really powerful. We obviously cannot rely on just one or another. We definitely need more AMMs. We need order books, centralized order books. We need RFQ systems. Hopefully, there is a room in the world for superposition, the one I just described. And yeah, this is one of the like RFQ kind of innovation that we are extremely excited about.
Yeah, so we have, superposition is so cool. I just learned about it today. We have Uniswap X, where anyone can be a filler as permissionless. Anyone can sort of provide quotes to trades that come in on the Uniswap X API. But I guess like, stepping back a little bit, the thing that we think about when we think about swapping and LPing is we approach it from like an asset class standpoint. So we actually work backwards from like stables, ETH volatile pairs, or like BTC volatile pairs, and then like long tail assets, RWAs, et cetera, et cetera. But we like to be very specific on like how people trade on the assets and how people LP on the assets, right? Someone who LPs, similar to what Nikita just said, someone who's LPs and stables are really looking at sort of a range, right? You're looking around a peg. Sometimes obviously it goes past the range of 10 bips of USDC, USDT around 1. But generally you stay around this like tight range. Volatile pairs, there's some lagging prices across DEXs and DEXs. And then long tail assets are sort of, it's wherever liquidity lies, which normally sits in AMMs. So when we think about RFQs and we think about Uniswap X and how people fill orders in Uniswap X, it is a lot of times in sort of like larger volatile pairs, stables where there is a lot of liquidity already. So anyone who wants to fill orders like have a lot of stable assets just sitting there ready to go. And volatile pairs, obviously you don't have the lag in block times. And then for long tail assets, you want to be on AMM because that's where it's most liquid. That's where it started, and that's where most LPs are going to stay. So we don't really just only think about how we fill prices, but we also think about what is the liquidity provider, like what is the person who's actually quote unquote like market making or filling orders? What are they doing? What is their hedging strategy? And we work backwards from there to think about how hooks play a role. And so when we think about the future of RFQs and we think about the future of AMMs, it really comes from user behavior and the assets in which the users are using.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to follow up on in terms of how work with market maker. I know there's like the evolutions of RFQ design. Back when I was working at 0x, there's this term RFQM, RFQT, based on different, like workflow, how users sign their wallet approval, and then the market maker confirm the quotes, and later on they will confirm the actual firm quotes. There's some kind of like adversarial a selection where if you're a sophisticated trader, you know how to hold their quotes until very last millisecond. And so everybody in the space, like working with market makers, starting to trying to figure out the problem of how to protect market makers' quotes to avoid, like toxic flow, basically. But then it is a really hard question to figure out. So I believe there's still, I'm curious how today working with market maker look like, and if there's still like friction like that to solve. Maybe start with Nico.
Sure. Yeah, I live that day to day. So yeah, there's always some exposition from the point of view of the market makers to the market when they are accepting these quotes or posting these quotes for the aggregators to integrate. And one of the things that helps this to overcome this issue is first latency. So you don't want participants in the market to be not trusting you, right, and be defensive. And one of the things that helps with this is more information. So we have changed or improved the way we negotiate in this back and forth with the market makers using Permit 2 and using our new version of OTC before to make the negotiation with the market makers the seamless. So these days, I think there's also the RFQ and the AMMs with programmability, prop AMMs that are like new primitives that are coming to the space that help transmit this information in a quicker way to prevent this kind of like toxic flow, these bad actors that are going to always be there in this adversarial environment, right? And yeah, I think that's something that it's ongoing and needs to be improved, and we need to work on that, and that's why we wake up every day thinking about solutions.
So let me pick up the question of prop AMMs and start from this angle. It's funny that prop AMMs like began on Solana, and there are multiple reasons for it, like technical. They didn't have like good RFQ systems, and just blockchain features sort of pointed this direction. But also, Ethereum order flow is extremely fragmented. We have like a lot of order flow coming from Uniswap, from wallets, from CowSwap, and there is like no single point of entry. While on Solana there is Jupiter. And Jupiter, like managed to capture most of the market share, and prop AMMs emerged as they provide better quotes, and they are almost like 40 or 50% of total order flow happening on Solana right now. But prop AMMs are getting commoditized, I would say. They are not in touch with end users, and they are also fighting for small basis points of improvements, which is good, but not a major innovation difference. However, we feel like this trend is coming to Ethereum as well. For example, KyberSwap, they have built their own hook, I believe, on top of UniV4, and they're the only aggregator that has access to it. And they're mixing their own liquidity with Uniswap, AMM programmability, with their own pricing methods, which is quite fascinating. It seems like their market share increased, so they're clearly doing something right. But I would say, and a small problem with RFQs on Ethereum mainnet, well, prop AMMs are coming. Liquidity is getting more fragmented, maybe also partly due to hooks and just due to other new designs. But I would say RFQ market is heavily concentrated. We pretty much have maybe 2-3 major platforms: Hashflow, Bebop, Native. That's about it, I guess. Maybe I'm missing someone. Apologies in case. But yeah, we need more RFQ systems. We want more competition. Competition leads to better execution and better prices. And I wish we had more partners to innovate in this particular niche.
Yeah,
Thoughts on prop AMM? You want to jump in or?
I do have thoughts. I mean, it's interesting, right? Because prop liquidity means that like you can generally almost always provide like better quotes. You know, like you're holding your own assets and you're sort of saying, I know what I can sell on like the centralized exchange. I know other buyers. I can always play with whatever liquidity. But it is interesting, right? Because if you do that, then you sort of knock out like on-chain LPs, right? You're almost always going to be able to give better pricing than on-chain LPs are, just based on the blockchain. I'm gonna shill for a little bit. We recently announced this big unification proposal for Uniswap. One of the things that's a part of it is the PFDA, so Protocol Fee Discount Auction, and in that, anyone, generally a searcher or anyone, can actually auction to take for a couple blocks zeroed out fees for a certain pool, and that creates a new. I think for the first time in a very long time, we're able to like play with the fee dynamic for LPing, right? If you're able to trade no fees on a ETH USDC pool, that gives you a competitive advantage over everyone else who's trading in that block, but also an advantage over all the other dexes. With prop AMMs and even with like just stable pools in general, right? Like you're seeing fee compression lower and lower, right? Because you're able to do that. You're playing on tight margins. And you're only trying to get that little delta, and like that's enough because you're over a long volume. You're much more profitable. And so with PFDA, we're letting people sort of, at least I like to think about it as like an equalizer. Like an average LP is able to see this and be like, okay, I know that I'm gonna get slipped because the Binance price is moving this much, and I have 12 seconds to, at least in this block, I have 12 seconds to be able to cover up my losses, so I can actually hedge as an LP and trade across other dexes to arbitrage across like what I'm seeing on Binance. I see it as like this really cool new primitive for people to compete with proprietary liquidity, but I don't know. It's yet to be seen. I want more people to kind of like build on top of it and do more creative things with it. But I think more than anything, what I'd like to see is creative solutions for on-chain LPs, so that like proprietary liquidity doesn't just like win out. It is like such a huge capital flight risk for all AMMs and DEXs and liquidity in general for the space. It has its benefits, but I think every liquidity provider, big and small, plays a role in keeping the health of Ethereum DeFi safe.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. So it's kind of like we don't want to go to the extreme world where concentration beats in a way that it gets better execution, or a lot of fragmentation, which is in a sense a curse, but also a blessing for us because it's our work. So the idea would be, let's keep it balanced in a way that there's concentration, but also these possibilities of these smart ways to build liquidity pools with programmability, and let us, like solvers, make it like so the end user doesn't suffer this fragmentation, right?
I would generally agree with the panel about the opinions about prop AMM. From first glance, I thought it's basically RFQ in a more elegant way, like a format implementation of Solana. Because of the nature of the gas is so cheap, you're able to basically stream all your levers on chain, which already RFQ been doing off chain in a way. I would say though, maybe there's a contrarian take. I'm curious also if anyone else have a discussion later on, but I think RFQ is better than the prop AMM in two aspects. One is we've been hearing now that all these Solana prop AMM is suffering from the toxic flow issue because you can basically have a MIVI bot, programmably basically checking the price of prop AMM and figure out if there is a profitable arbitrage and take the flow when the pricing is off. So they are, I believe, fighting against that. Of course, you can do the thing that's like whitelisting just the Jupyter aggregator front end. But I mean, it's a similar thing that when you are doing off-chain RFQ, you probably is like the API only allow pings from known partners. But there's another aspect I think RFQ can do better for the market maker compared to prop AMM, which is when you are an aggregator, you are sourcing the price between AMM and RFQ liquidity, right? And your goal is to provide a price that is better than just available out there for the AMMs. So you can basically design dynamic fee where the market maker doesn't need to provide the optimal price, but already maybe a slightly better price than AMM. So to potentially even help to keep a basically like margin for both the aggregator and also market maker. You can figure out how the incentive work later on, but I think this is actually some intelligence the prop AMM are not considering right now, if that makes sense. Yeah. Cool. I think we don't have much time. Any last thoughts from everybody about what to look forward to for in the space of liquidity in the next maybe 18 months, 12 months?
Real quick, so I think that based on the new technologies that are decreasing latency and making things super cheap, I think we can improve our protocols and also make the information more readily available for users and for our partners to decrease the spread and increase the trust. For this, we need to build, and yeah, we're hiring.
I would make a bet that in 12 months, the market would look different than it looks now. I think initially like DEXs and AMMs had a lot of flow, and then aggregators started winning, and then intent-based systems emerged. Hopefully in 12 months, not hopefully, I mean definitely the order flow landscape will be more efficient and different. We'll see new names, new projects, both from liquidity side, from execution side, from where like wallets and where people like are coming from. So yeah, it's something to watch and to study. I think it will be exciting.
I want more hooks. I want LPs to be profitable, like just objectively on markouts, more profitable. I want better execution quality. That's like I want actually in the next 18 months. I would love if DEX like on-chain pricing is actually the true price. And we don't actually refer to Binance price as true price anymore. Let's just refer to like on-chain prices as true price, right? I mean, we have to get there, but like, we got a power team here. What else? I think, can I shill? I can shill? Okay, shill. So part of the unification proposal that I was alluding to before also has, we have the uni burn, but it's not a regular burn. We actually have it split out so that there's a token jar which collects fees from Uniswap. And then it has a separate fire pit which burns the uni token, and a searcher takes the fees, or takes the token fees. So this comes from like all V2 pools, some V3 pools. I would love for people to take that token jar and do other things with it. Take the token jar and then give it back to LPs. Have more yield generating strategies, make LPs more profitable, or take it, make pools deeper, and make the pricing better. We can have like jitting into pools with the token jar so that we're actively always making prices better so that all on-chain liquidity is true price. Boom, done. That's it.
Really happy to leave that on a bullish note. With that, thank you all the panelists, and thank you everybody to come.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.